Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hello. Welcome at our 20th Pan-European Conference on Digital Education. As you can see, today's conference is a bit more special. We have a guest here. His name is Frode. You can quickly present yourself.
Yes, my name is Frode Heieren. I work at Fonix in a small town in Norway, south of Oslo, called Sandefjord. As used to be a job consultant, now I work in our international department.
Perfect. And today's conference is also a bit more special because it's a part of one project that we're all included in. It's called Career Guidance in Working Life. And in this project, there are 6 partners, 2 from Slovenia, 1 partner from Ireland, then we have partners from Portugal and also Norway and Denmark. And today we would like to share with you some results of the project that are made. And aside from that, you're going to hear some other very interesting good practice examples from teachers, from trainers, especially meant for the development, professional and personal, of teachers, trainers, and other people who are listening to this conference today. Just so you have a short impression of what the project is about, we have prepared one short video, so we invite you to watch it. Okay, so as you can see, the project is focused mostly on career guidance. It's about developing innovative methods and tools that you can use when working either with students or with low-skilled workers. And some of them will be presented today, one also by Frode. Would you like to add something about the project as well?
No, what you say, it's about well, mainly getting people back into work. That's the part I'm going to present today. The IPS method. If you know it from before, it's going to be a refresh your minds, I guess. And if you heard about it, it's going to be a good introduction.
Okay, perfect. Aside from Frode, we have 3 different presentations. One will be given by our colleague Petra Založnik. Some of you already know her from our past conferences, and she'll present Reauthoring the Future, how narrative affects our work and life. The 3rd presentation will be provided by Tânia, and she will talk about applying practical activities, creative facilitation. And the last but not least presentation will be by Mojca Vukovič, and she will present one good practice example of an Erasmus project. She'll talk about teaching important life and professional skills, and it's an Erasmus Plus project, as I mentioned. And now we're going to begin with the first presentation. So I invite you to share your own presentation.
Thank you so much.
Just a second.
There you go. I hope you can all see the screen. As Monica said, the day today is dedicated to work for life. And my presentation is about the IPS method, individual placement and support. Working as a job consultant in Norway for about 15 years, both Fonix and I felt that things were going really good. We had a lot of younger people that were disabled in some kind, have been on sick leave for, well, up to 17 years. We got them all back into work, but usually by a way of preparatory training, and everyone was happy. But then we kind of were looking for new methods that maybe could get them faster back into work and also get them back into a kind of work that they both enjoyed and could stay in over time. And we came across the IPS method. The IPS method was developed in the United States in the early 90s. So it's been here for almost 30 years now. And like it says here on the screen, it was designed for people with serious mental illnesses or other health issues. But as the years passed by, it was more developed into a general tool to help anyone back into work. And as I said, to work at regular jobs that they chose themselves. So it was not up to the job consultant to kind of decide what kind of job that was fit for them. They made their choices, and along the way, we helped them in the way I'm going to explain to you now. The IPS method, the method is what it says here, it's doing what works. It's a strength-based support. We see their strengths, we see what can work out for them. We also, like I said, it used to be for just people with serious mental issues, but now it's brought back to so you can help any client. And at Fonix, we have people from the ages of 18 to 67, so it's kind of fit for everyone. It has expanded into this really good tool for helping people back into work, anyone. And it's based on the 8 principles, and I have about 20 minutes to present those today. And the principles are like this.
Just a second. I heard that you cannot see the PowerPoint presentation, so we'll try to share it again. So it should work now.
Okay. Then I'm just going to go through these really quick. If you can see them now. Like I said, it was developed in the 90s, been going on for like 30 years. Usually it was designed for people, or originally people with serious mental illnesses, but it has been expanded to kind of help anyone that comes into your office and needs some kind of help finding work. It's based on your strengths, and it's also based on 8 principles that I'm going to go through for you now. Zero exclusion. I'm going to go into each one of these afterwards. And it's also competitive employment. Employment services are integrated with relevant treatment services. You also have rapid job search. Client preferences are honored. You develop relationships with employers, and there's also a benefits counseling included. So all these 8 principles are kind of the basis of IPS. Zero exclusion. You are not excluded based on your readiness, your diagnosis, your symptoms, your substance use history. No, nothing. You can come into our company and you can get help, even if you don't feel ready. Maybe you are not ready. We will try to adjust the help you're getting from the point in life where you are at the moment. Are you homeless? Well, we can help you with housing. Do you have a large degree of a disability? We can work around that. And if you also are in treatment, well, that's kind of part of the system. So there's no exclusion. We don't say close the door and say, no, you're not eligible to have help at the moment. It's based on the client's choice. And everyone who wants to work, they qualify. That's kind of the first basis of the IPS methodology. And by doing this for years now, and by getting documentation from other countries using IPS, we can see that there's no connection between succeeding in getting work and the other factors, diagnosis, symptoms, age, sex, and such. There are no connection here. So that's why one of the most important principles is that there is no exclusion. If you want to work, well, you're welcome to come in and get help through the IPS methodology. Competitive employment, that's also a huge part of IPS. Usually when they came into Fonix back in the older days, some years ago, we were not on the competitive market from day one. We were trying to find shelter jobs, or we were trying to find some jobs where you could get a training, and you were maybe there for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, and maybe at the end there was a job waiting for you if you did really good in the beginning. Now it's turned completely around. We go out into the open labor market, and we demand the same pay as other employees in a similar position, or at least, as it says, a minimum wage. They are not steered into shelter jobs. We set those aside for people that have disabilities that would last, but we do try to find competitive jobs, competitive employment for our clients. And that's something that clients value a lot more. Being in a shelter job is fine. It's a step on your way to getting back into work, but at the same time, you don't really go anywhere. You don't feel the same being included in the same way at your workplace as if you go and get a job in competition with other job seekers. Like it says at the bottom, being trusted with a paid job, it really motivates you and creates loyalty. You really want to do your best. You really want to stay there, and you really try as hard as you can. But of course, a lot of people do still have a lot of issues. Like I said, a lot of the people that come into Fonix, they're between 18 and 67 years old. And some of them have been without work for a week or maybe a year. But the most that I've been in touch with was this guy who hadn't worked for 17 years. And 17 years of mental issues do something to you. And even if you've had mental issues some years ago, well, getting back into work, you can kind of feel the problems again. They become stronger maybe for you. So we have integrated services. The specialists, the job consultants, the employment specialists at Fonix and other companies, we meet with the mental health treatment teams at least once or twice weekly. So it's not that you're part of this job search now, IPS, where it's just job focus. It's all integrated. We do your health and we do your job search at the same time. And we truly believe that what it says at the bottom, that work is part of the treatment. Working a tiny bit, if it's adjusted to where you are in life, will make you feel better, will make you healthier. So we have a really close connection with therapists, with your doctor, with your housing specialists, and so on along the way, because it all kind of fits together. It's all part of the same process. Rapid job search is a really important part, and I think it's a really fun part of being a job consultant. People come in and they're maybe anxious, they may be eager, they may be scared. What's happening now? Is this just going to be, me telling my life story to the job consultant for days and days and weeks and weeks and months and nothing happening? And it's not. We start the job search as soon as possible, as soon as you're ready for it, because we think that will do something about your whole motivation. I've had people who came into our office and on the first day said, "Hey, I really don't want to tell my story. I just want to find a job." And in the same meeting, I called some of the employers I know within that field of work. That makes the client actually see that you answer their needs, you answer their wants. So the rapid job search is a really important part of the IPS methodology. At the latest, within a month. It can be adjusted if your health isn't all there at the moment. But again, we try to make the job search and the job we put you back into adjusted to where you are when it comes to your health. I've had people who came into my office and said, hey, I can work 1 hour. And I said, well, 1 hour a day is not that much. And they said, no, it's 1 hour every week. And that's fine. Let's start at 1 hour every week. If that's where you are, if you will feel motivation by getting back into work and you will feel some kind of achievement, well, let's do it. We'll try out for 1 hour a week. Maybe the next week you'll try 2 hours, and the third week try 3 hours. So we adjust it to where you are, but we start the job search really, really fast. We make them explore the world of work, as it says here, that is right for them, but we try to start the job search as soon as possible. And as soon as possible also makes them feel seen by Fonix, by the IPS consultants, by the job consultants. So the rapid job search is a really important part too. Client preferences. There's no use, not at least a lot of use in getting people to start a work that they really don't like. I'm just there for the practice of it. I'm just there to see if this will work out, if I can show up, if I can do some kind of work. But really at the end, they really don't want to stay there. And to go to a place and do a kind of work that we really don't like, it doesn't make you loyal. It doesn't make you feel motivated. And that's why we try to grasp what are the preferences of our clients that will make them feel empowered, that will make them feel happier, that will definitely make them feel more motivated to try out the methodology and do their best. So we talk to the clients a lot. We have meetings several times every week, and we use other methods to see, well, what are your strengths? What do you want to do? Okay, you're a bus driver now, and you used to be a bus driver. Now you're blind. So driving a bus will be a bit hard. So what do you do now? So let's see, what are your strengths? Well, being a bus driver, you probably like talking to people. You're probably social. Is that something we can build on? So we talk to the clients a lot to see what are your preferences? What will make you stay at the workplace longer? What will make you feel motivated? And of course, if they're unrealistic, we have to make some adjustments. That's kind of the hard part of our work, but we have to be realistic. It must be a job they can actually get in our community, and also a job they can stay in over time. We have a lot of relationships with employers in our communities, and developing relationship with the employers is a really important part of being a job consultant in the IPS methodology. We make visits to companies that we know from earlier, and we also go out and make what we call cold calls. We just show up their workplace with a presentation of the methodology of who Fonix are, and hopefully somewhere down the road we can use them when we have the clients that really want to work within that kind of field of work their business are doing. So we make multiple visits to the same employers. We have to adjust how much we're talking. Some really don't want us to spend too much of their time, but just to come in, maybe have a cup of coffee, pat some employers on the back, and just have a short meeting. We'll do something in a community that we work in. We get to know each other, and it's so much easier to pick up the phone when I have a client that really wants to work as a carpenter, or in a grocery store, or as an architect, or as a designer. So a lot of the work we do is developing relationship with employers. We're selling a product here, and one of the main things we have to do then is to develop those relationships. We also have personalized benefit counseling. A lot of them receive money from the government. Some of them have sheltered housing. Some of them need some extra benefits from everything from a wheelchair to hearing aids. That's also something we try to help them out with, because it's really hard to focus on finding a job if your personal life is chaotic, if your personal life is in the economic ruins. So a lot of the stuff we also are doing to try to make the whole package work is that we help them with benefits counseling. Maybe I'm not sure about the whole system, but then I usually know someone I can call or get the client, put the client in touch with. So the whole package is important here. It's really hard to focus on jobs when your personal life isn't working. So we try to help them in every aspect along the way. Another big part of it is the time unlimited support. Usually when we didn't use this methodology, there was usually an end to our help. Usually after 6 months, that was it. That's what the government paid us for. You have 6 months to try to find work for this person. Now the government of Norway said, well, this is really not a good thing to have the limitation on time. It's better to use a bit more time, but make sure that the solution you come up with together with the client is something that will work in the future, not just in the near future, but also in the distant future. So the time unlimited support is really important part of the methodology. We provide support as long as needed and as long as it's desired. And it can be really different from person to person. Sometimes it's just a month. Sometimes it goes all the way up to 6 months like it used to be. But in some cases, the client needs support for a longer time. And then it's possible for us to stay beside the client for that period of time. Maybe not as much as in the beginning. Maybe we'll just call them up every second week or every month. But at least they know they have us in the background to help them if there's any needs they have. And those are the 8 principles of the IPS. A really short summary. We could talk for hours about this, but with time we don't have the time. If you have any questions, you can find me or one of my colleagues on social media, or you can also ask in the chat. And I'll try to answer them as soon as possible. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your presentation. And we also have some questions from the participants of our conferences. So Roberto would like to know whether job searching is done with using special apps, or do you directly apply to an employer?
Again, that's kind of one of the, like I said, one of the principles is that we use a lot of time talking to employers. I know a lot of people that do come in and want to work in grocery stores. I know a lot of them maybe wants to work at call centers. So that's where I kind of use my spare time. On my way back home from work, I usually drive to one of the grocery stores and I talk to the manager. I ask him, or I pat him on the back, I ask how they're doing. I get a cup of coffee, and that's kind of the connections, where the connections are made. When I take a taxi, I talk to the taxi driver. When I'm at the bus station, I try to talk to one of the bus drivers. Our whole mentality is talking to people and getting your face and getting Fonix as a business and what we're doing recognized. So special apps, well, we have the job search tools. We use those in close connection with the clients. But at the same time, it's really important to have the personalized relationship. It's so much easier. I can if I'm looking at the grocery store, I try to find who's the manager. Then I go to LinkedIn and see, well, do we have some connections? Do I know someone you know? I go to Facebook and see, well, do we have some mutual friends? Because when I pick up the phone and I call you, I can say, hey, Monica, you don't know me, but I'm Frode. I'm from Fonix. You know Thor, don't you? Oh, you say Thor? Yeah, he's my cousin. Well, I know Thor. We used to go to school together. And then we have a connection at once. And we try to develop those into a relationship where I can call Monica, call you in the next time and say, I have this great girl here. She hasn't been working for a bit. Can we have a talk later on today or next week or whenever? So we've used the search tools, but at the same time, it's a lot of phone calls and even more just showing up at workplaces, saying, hi, do you have 5 minutes? And usually they have more than 5 minutes. They want to show us their new machinery, their new blackboards, whatever, and we get some kind of connection that we can use later on. Just by sitting at your desk, making phone calls won't really help in the end. You have to be out there, get your name and your face recognized. And in smaller communities that we operate in, the towns I operate in are, there's 40,000 people living there. So we use a lot of them, but of course we go into the different jobs where we know that most people will try to find a job. Grocery stores will always be popular. Makeup. What do you call
makeup?
Working with makeup and stuff will always be popular.
Makeup artist.
Yeah, will always be popular. So we try to get in touch with the employers that we know a lot of our clients would want to go into.
Okay, thank you. And it seems very challenging in a way.
Yep.
And that's also another question from Alessandra.
Yeah.
She would like to know, which is, in your opinion, the most challenging part of this process, of the IPS method? Question.
No, I think it's, well, not the hardest part, but the most important part is making them believe in themselves. Even if they've been sick for a long time, to make them see and believe that there are jobs for you. We're not perfect. Most of us watching today, most of us talking today, we've had friends who has been on sick leave. We may have been on sick leave before. Our lives are not just an A4 chart of white paper. It's not just an upward or a smooth ride. We know that life goes in cycles. But it's kind of how you meet those challenges that are important. So try to get the clients, and maybe the challenge sometimes is to make them see that, hey, I am good. I couldn't do good. I can actually show up at the workplace and do good. Someone will appreciate what I have in me, what I can deliver. And that's maybe the hardest part. But when that works, that's the best part of the job. Okay. It makes me blush, but that is the most. Yeah, that's the best part of the job. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sure that we can talk for quite some
Don't
time.
get me started.
So if you have any further questions for Frode, you can also post them on Facebook or on YouTube, and you can answer it after you're done with your presentation. Sure, so you just get in touch with Frode, and he'll be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. And we'll continue with the second presentation. The one who will present next is Petra Založnik. So I welcome her in the studio. Hello, Petra. We can't hear you yet, but we will soon.
Sorry, I just forgot to unmute it myself. Hello, nice to meet you.
Hello. Can you briefly, just in some sentence, tell us a little bit about yourself so we have the impression who is presenting, and then you can continue with your presentation.
That's always a funny part of it, like how to present yourself. I can start with that my background is in educational science and sociology of culture, and I have been working in the field of education for the last 15 years in multiple roles, from being a teacher to working in NGOs, working on this national systemic level. But then kind of my passion called me to be an independent expert counselor and trainer, and do a lot of trainings and workshops, facilitations with schools and also in other sectors, based on the participatory approaches and the narrative work. So that's kind of my background for where I come, because I find it quite challenging working in different fields, and especially I was working in the field of innovation. So how to bring innovation in the system, and it kind of never worked out completely. So I was really personally curious, what are the key ingredients that people change their mindsets and the narratives that they have? So I still didn't find the solutions, of course, but I think there is not one recipe, but I'm really eager to support different kind of actors of change, managers, principals, teachers who are willing to go on this journey, which is not always funny and sexy. It's sometimes rocky, but it's on the end worth it, I think.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And also today you're going to talk about narrative. So when you're ready, you can begin with your presentation. Thank you.
I will. Maybe just first, I would just like to say a few words about what's the purpose. I will just present you shortly, like a bit taste of the theory about the story work and the narrative, and then I will present you one concrete example from one school, and later we did this kind of process on many other Slovenian schools. So just that you know what will be my more purpose of the presentation. So I will start sharing the screen, and Monica, please let me know if there is something that will not work. Okay. So here we go. Monica, can you see it?
Yeah, it works perfectly.
Okay, thank you very much. So yeah, my invitation for this next 10 minutes is that we together go on a journey about reauthoring the future and how narrative affects our work and our life. And I will start with a simple question. And it sounds like, what is a word? And answer is a world. And today we will play a lot with words and a lot of words and a lot of with stories. And I would like to say something about the stories. It's not that every word that we say is also a story. We say that story is a narrative. So we basically think in words, but we connect with stories. And when I say stories, I don't mean only those things that we read, fairy tales, tales, and folk tales. When I say a story, I mean when we share our experiences, it's the way how we look on our lives, the inner monologue that we are having. A story or narrative is always we always connect sequences and events, and then we express it through the words. Sometimes we do it with imagination. Then in the performing art, we can see music and other sorts of communication. And whatever kind of story there is, our personal or from someone else, stories always have beginning, middle, and the end. And why is understanding of the story so important? Also, regarding our work and our life, our professional and personal development. When I say stories, most of the people believe that stories live in the pages of the books. But most important stories in the world are hidden. Like they always and all the time live inside of us. That's why we say that stories or the narrative are kind of leans the way how we see the world. And they give us the schemes and the interpretations, how we will absorb, how we will reflect, how we will react on something that happened to us. So the basic of the narrative approach is that it believes that human beings make meaning of their lives through the stories that we tell to ourselves. And I would say that here lies the key. Because if we live in a story, and if we took our life as a consequences of different stories, so that means that we can change our stories too. And that's kind of the key of the narrative practices. Through narrative practices, we are invited that we reauthorize our world and our lives. By being aware of this challenging and sometimes taking for granted beliefs that we have about our life, and quite often also about our collective story. So what we often do in narrative practices is that we invite either individuals or sometimes teams or sometimes the whole organization, that they start to gently question or that lenses through which they take a look on their work or on their life or organization life that they have. And then through the questions, they're invited to look on different perspectives. So if I use the metaphor, with narrative practices, we are we take back the pen, so we reauthorize and re-author our world. And there is one thing that is really important in narrative practices is that there is always, if you take a look your life, maybe your last, I don't know, week, let's say, to be concrete. So there are always different events, different things that happen to us. And we can connect them, and we quite often do in this kind of way that is constant, that is always happening to us, that kind of support us, that we don't change things. Yeah, because the problem or the dominant story that we quite often leave or have in the frame of different system is the one that kind of doesn't support us in making a change. And there are always opportunities, and there are kind of lights in the darkness that we say alternative narratives. So these are practices that are more supportive, that are more nourishing, that are more encouraging, either for us or for our team and for our collective in which we are working. So that's just kind of framing of the narrative practices and the story work. And this approach that I will present you, was developed through different experts, through different practitioners of this in the field of the story. One of them is Shania Swart, Swahale, Mary Alice Arthur. So there is just a lot of things combined in this concrete example that I will present you in the next minutes. So here we go with one concrete story from the field. On the picture, you can see one of the secondary school in Slovenia. It's Gimnazia Celje Center. And we were just invited by the principals because he was really kind of eager to invite his staff to reflect the COVID year. So this happened in June because he witnessed and he noticed that there is no more passion for being a teacher. And he asked himself, like, what is really the core of our profession? And he wanted to invite his member of a team to do the same and to be really honest about themselves. What are their drivers, and what kind of things frustrate them, and where they have kind of strengths and powers. So that was his intention. And we decided to do this with the narrative practices. On the first day, I will present this really shortly. We just did a collective story harvesting method, by which I will not go into the detail, but he invited 3 of his colleagues that kind of finished with their professional careers, so they went to retired, that they shared their own stories about what they see that is the core of their profession. And the first day was kind of really empowering, because the stories that they shared were so honest, radical honest, I would say, but so touching that it gave us a really good foundation to start with the workshop on the second day. And the workshop title was Revitalization of the School Year. So it was how to revitalize what happened to us. And what we did first, so we decided that we invite, there was a group of 60 teachers, and we decided that we will divide teachers in 5 groups. So there was basically 12 groups, and in every group there were 5 members, and they covered, each group covered one area. So one group just were discussing about how did they feel, how did they function in this COVID year as a teacher. One group, more of the groups, reflect how they feel or function as a collective of school staff. So some groups were focused on the relationship with students, some on the leading of the lessons, and some they focused on the school within a broader community. So that was they were invited, so you can see this is how it looked like. We presented and prepared a template for them. They're in Slovene, of course, and they just discuss about these questions around the tables. And after they finished with the first conversation, we invited them that they kind of tried to find metaphor for everything what they have said so far. So it was not that they of course presented few of the most important issues, problems that they kind of sensed in all these areas, but then they expressed themselves with metaphors. And these were some of the metaphors, and that school was like a circus, that teachers, they were plugged in and unplugged, that teachers, the screaming voice, they felt like the screaming voice in the desert. And some groups also make pictures, so they kind of draw and present different things that they kind of witness and were part of it. And sport lessons teacher, they said that this is not sustainable in the long run. So they kind of present everything what they said differently with metaphors. So what we basically did with them is that we talked about what they sense and what we normally speak to ourselves. So we first went in this problem or the dominant story that we quite often say to ourselves in this in general, I would say, but also in the quite hard circumstances as the COVID is and it was. And then we invite them. So we went from the surface, we invite them to kind of shape a metaphor for this, what they sense and what they speak. And what we did after that, of course, we did a lot of recognition because there were a lot of hard circumstances that COVID caused to the teachers and the students. So it was not that we were arrogant towards that. It was just to honor the stories that there was, whatever kind of stories there were, and then to kind of pack them in the metaphor. But what we did then with the great gentleness, we invite teachers that they take a look in these metaphors, in everything what they have discussed in the first round, if there are some limiting beliefs. So if there are some stories or kind of beliefs that doesn't support them in a way, they're like anchor and doesn't allow them to do next steps. And I would say that this was really, really beautiful experience because they recognized a lot of limiting beliefs in this, what they had said on the beginning. One of the limiting beliefs is that others always had a power, or that it's not possible to change anything, or you cannot teach you cannot have the quality of distance teaching, and etc. So we just kind of invite these limiting beliefs, and we didn't judge them, we did nothing with them, we just kind of give them a space and recognize them. And what we did, I will go after there. What we did is that it was kind of the key moment. We invited, and I will just share the screen for a moment. We invited also the students who finished the 4th class of the school. And we invited them that in 1 minute, they share with 60 teachers the feelings and the most valuable things that are staying with them after 4 years. So there were kind of 10 students, and each of them shared what was the most meaningful for him or for her. And I have to say that was one of the moments when there was complete silence in the room, and teachers really make a big applause after each student share what was the most valuable for him or for her, because they were really, really honest, and they exposed, I think, what is the core of the teacher profession, and really how can school support this working for life and working for career. Monica, I would just like to check if you can see my presentation now, because I can go further.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, so after the student presents their kind of gratitude, their feelings and experiences, we invite them that they go and sit together with the teachers. And what we did in the second round, we invite the members of the school that they take different perspective about the COVID year. So we invite them that they kind of remind themselves and they reflect in what happened to them, what kind of alternative stories or mindsets and actions did they take during this COVID year. So we invite them to remember concrete actions, concrete change of mindsets, and concrete people who supported them. So all this kind of how they find the solutions, what worked best for them, what empowered them the most in this process, and with whom they did it. So alliance and partner, and then we invite them to kind of construct a new metaphor. So we kind of did this curve, so from growing from problem story to metaphor for limiting beliefs, and then to kind of give it a way out from the water. And so you can see that the students joined the tables. And as I mentioned, teachers worked on these 5 areas that I mentioned on the beginning. So the thread of the group was all the time the same. And then they kind of witness and reflect what are the factors of positive changes that were born in time of the COVID. On the 3 levels, on the levels of mindset, on the level of concrete actions, and on the levels of alliance and partners, as I said before. And what happened in this 2 or 3 hours? So the new metaphors that were kind of created on the end, from that it's not possible to do a sport lessons, they kind of give this metaphor of swallows, so that they have the feeling that they can fly. From that teacher, we are internal students. One metaphor was also, if life gives you a lemons, make a lemonade. And one metaphor on the field of school was that the school is a prism, and that we as a school, we can take a wider look to a cleaner goals. And there was also few pictures. This is kind of it's not very good scene, but it was kind of a blooming tree. So that with recognizing these alternative stories, good practices that they have done in this COVID time, they got this feeling that they can be also like blossoms tree. And all these new metaphors gave them a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of energy. So how to kind of finish a school year and how to start also the next school year. So the school year that is happening right now. So you can see just how all the conversations and meetings were harvested. We prepare a lot of templates. So you can see they're in Slovene, so sorry for that. We tried to to translate few of them, but just that you see how we worked also on the larger scale, and the point of harvesting, so the different groups that they heard each other conversations were really important part of the workshop too. And what we did on the end, we decided to do a final circle, because I find the circles always very inspiring and very connected. And I think that was one of the most inspiring circles, because students, they decided that they will stay till the end. There was a lot of tears, a lot of gratefulness, and you could really sense and see the connections that they were among the team, how empowered they felt on the end of the 2-day workshop. So it was really, really a great experience, and it is one concrete example how you can use the narrative approach in the field of education. So how to re-question ourselves about the beliefs that we are having, about the dominant stories that we are having, and about the alternative stories. So I will just finish with the invitation, and for yourself, for all of you that you are with us today, and to encourage you that our alternative stories the narrative is always present, and it's potentially waiting to be seen, to be invited back more fully into preferred way of living and being. So I invite you that you start to search, to dig, or just to give a space to all these alternative stories, narratives that are already in your life, present and kind of waiting that they get more space. So the work of the narrative practices is really how to take back the power of our story, and how to be active partner in the life for ourselves, for others, for our students, teachers, and the way how we co-create every day in the school, but also in the way how we co-create our organization and system as such. So that was all from my side. I hope that you get inspiration about what's possible and how we can change things, and how we can perceive some situations differently.
Thank you so much, Petra, for this wonderful presentation. Participants said that they really liked it, and we also have one comment and a question from Valentina. She has written that narrative therapy proposes a new way to deal with pain, stress, and trauma, and she wants to know if the narrative is a different way from those proposed by other guidelines.
I don't understand the question, sorry.
Is there a difference between narrative therapy and the narrative that you're doing?
Okay, my narrative practice, the one that I'm using I'm not a therapist. My background is not therapeutic. So I don't use the narrative therapy, because narrative therapy is more often used in this field of psychotherapy, but there are similarities because we are both approaches. We are working with the deconstructions of the beliefs, and then invite individuals or teams to kind of transform or reauthorize the belief that they are having for the more nourishing and kind of empowering future. So there are similarities, but also differences, especially in this, that the narrative therapy goes really more in the therapeutic field of the expertise. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah. Thank you so much for everything. And now we'll continue with the next presentation with Tânia. And the same goes for Petra as it was for Frode. If you have any questions, just write them in the chat. And if she'll be able to answer them, she will. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, and now I welcome Tânia.
Hi.
Hello, Tânia.
Hi.
Hello. Same goes for you. So can you shortly present yourself just in few sentences so we have the impression of what you're doing?
Okay, my name is Tânia. I'm from Portugal. I am a psychologist and my work is almost on the training area. We work with different kinds of groups, and at this time we have here some training courses to people that were unemployed and now they are changing their field of work, and they will have to go to a new job. So this Erasmus Plus project was in the perfect timing for us to try our piloting phase. It was an interesting experience, and that's what I will bring to you today.
Perfect. So it's about creative facilitation.
Yes.
And I'm sure that we'll hear some very practical examples because you were able to do it with the group of participants.
Yes, with our trainees in our training course, yes.
Okay, thank you. So when you're ready, you can
begin. Yes, I am. I hope you are too.
Of course we are.
So let's see if this works. And it isn't working.
Okay, you can try again with the options share screen. Does it work?
No, I don't know why. We've tried it.
Yes, sooner it worked, but it's not a now it should be working.
Yes, you can see my presentation.
We see your screen, so maybe if you click on the presentation, we'll be able to see the presentation as well. Okay, now it works.
Yes. Okay.
Yes,
thank you so much, Monica.
Welcome.
I will start now. So, in the scope of the Erasmus Plus project, Career Guidance in a Changing Labour Market Work Guidance, Greta from Ireland had the opportunity to share some examples of good practices working with individuals and groups looking for a job developed in their daily work. Citeve from Portugal had the opportunity to work closely with them and implement those activities in a current training course in the piloting phase of this project, like I said before. All the activities that we'll share with you today have a common basis, the creative facilitation, and you might ask me, what is creative facilitation? So, creative facilitation. When preparing practical activities for a group guidance session, we immediately think how we can best support the individuals in order to extrapolate the knowledge they have gained already and assist them to reflect and reframe their perceptions. What Greta has learned from Partners Training for Transformation, a reflective organization that has been developing training for facilitators in Ireland, is that more important and efficient than trying to convince people that they have numerous competencies will be to create strategies and paths that allow their own conclusions and acceptance of those competencies. And for that, all activities must be tailored to the needs of each group and the individuals belonging to that group, with the aim of facilitating conclusions and decisions after self-analysis and self-reflection. The facilitator doesn't give answers, but increasingly asks questions that allow the conclusions of each group member. And so, this is creative facilitation. Having this in mind and thinking in our target group, those that are unemployed, that are looking for a new job, we would promote some reflection on stereotype notions about work, job, and training, as well as skills, and the importance of a curriculum vitae and an interview. So let's start with our suggestions of practical activities. Analyzing perspectives about work, job, and training can be an icebreaker activity to facilitate discussion about participants' views on these topics. Facilitator can start having a discussion with the group about the changing nature of work over the past 30 years. Then, using interactive presentations like Mentimeter with 2 questions. why do we work or benefits of work, and do we work, do we have a job, or do we have a career? This can be linked to participants' motivations and values, can help to identify skills that need to be developed, gives participants the opportunity to explore their views on work and what it means to them, understand that work's role in their lives can change over their lifetime and personal circumstances. Reflect on that work activities, tasks, or roles a person can focus on to be more aligned to their motivations, resulting in greater job satisfaction. And finally, see how perception of their role as being either a job, work, or career is often undervaluing the role. A career is often seen as being the most valued and being something that others have and not themselves. Then, in this workshop, we can use, again, Mentimeter to reflect on a series of sentences like, I can't learn something new, learning is fun, and others based on the typical anxieties and preconceived ideas that learners have regarding returning to education and training. The questions are posed in a mostly negative perspective because we want to firstly acknowledge a lot of adults returning to education often feel this way, and secondly, through the analysis of scenarios and case studies and positive examples of people returning to education, as well as the discussion and reflection, give the opportunity to reframe their thinking, resulting in a more positive view towards returning to education and training. And here we are to talk about skills. That is a common topic. So it's easier, once again, to reflect generally than to think about ourselves, to say, this is my skill, I have that skill. So participants are asked to think about what skills would a person need to have to do their current job or the jobs they've had, one skill on each of their post-it notes, and to write as many skills as possible and place them on an A3 sheet of paper by order of importance. So participants are invited to first take a picture on their phone of their A3 sheet, because this is a representation of their individual skill set, and maybe they never thought about it, and then to reflect for a few moments on a skill that they would like to improve or a new skill that they would like to acquire. The key learnings from this practice are the recognition of skills and take personal ownership of skills. Those in the same organization doing different roles get the opportunity to have an understanding on what their colleagues actually do in their positions. If we are doing this activity in a company that has some new opportunities and they want to improve their workers to change their places, and providing motivation for personal growth and a vision for potential promotion or alternative role within the company. Now, let me just The last workshop created to show participants what role the CV and interview play in the recruitment and selection process through the opportunity to think like the employer and the experiential learning of being in the role of human resource managers, advertising, selecting, and recruiting employees for a company. Firstly, they are asked to create a job description for the role with the help of the facilitator that focus on certain aspects that are included or omitted by the groups. Then they design the advertisement for the position. After this, they are given 6 CVs with the faces down and make like a 30 seconds test. Which means that they will have 30 seconds to review each CV and place it in the yes or no pile in front of them, would they call for the next stage in the selection process. This particular activity brings awareness of how much a good layout is important, because in 30 seconds, they won't be able to learn the CV. They will create an opinion only by the visual aspect of this document. And we all know that in our daily basis, we must create a good first impression. Now that we have a discussion about the visual aspect of the CV, we will have the adequate time to analyze each CV and construct brutally honest positive and negative feedback for each and select who they are going to bring forward to the next stage. All the CVs have something appealing about them, but they also have something incorrect in them. For instance, grammar mistakes, emails that aren't so professional, too much personal information, etc. When the time is up, each group takes it in turn to feedback to the larger group, with a facilitator recording feedback, like in this example. Here we can see all the ideas that were bringing in the discussion that facilitator was trying to create with the group. And the next step is to prepare 8 to 10 interview questions to ask and plan how they would score the interview, and finally role play that interview. After this rich amount of work in group, individual sessions can be scheduled. We must remember that creative facilitation doesn't have like these formal rules. We will try always to adapt to the individual's needs. So after this work group, we must create individual moments to get to a new level of understanding and reflection. What I will do with you now is share some pictures of the Portuguese participants of our piloting phase in the Erasmus Plus project. What I can share with you is that we had a very exciting and energizing activity. The group talked and reflected so openly about their ideas and concerns about the future that this was a very good introduction to the phase they are starting. They are starting now to prepare their integration in companies, to develop the practice in a work context in which they are supposed to apply all the knowledge acquired during the course in a company. In this case, we are talking about a textile area company. These internships are very similar to a selection process for employment because the companies develop an interview. And after this interview, both students and company will give us feedback to us, Citeve, on whether they want to start this experience or not. Now, my presentation was so brief. Monica asked me for a 7-minute presentation, and I believe the richest part will start now, because here today with us we have Nola and Siobhan. They are from Gretchen in Ireland, and they have lots of experience, and I hope you have lots of questions for me and for them mostly. Thank you so much for your attention. I hope you enjoyed these activities and this experience as well as I did. Thank you.
Okay, for now, there weren't any questions from the audience.
I talk so fast, maybe.
There were some comments. We had a comment that a simple task like writing a CV can really be a nightmare for some people.
Yes.
Perhaps, Nola, you have experience when working with this kind of people. How can you make it easier for them to do such a task as writing a CV or doing this kind of stuff?
Yeah, I suppose as a somebody who would, prior to using creative facilitation within my actual practice, would have gone in and presented to groups on how to do a CV. And an awful lot of the time, a lot of the CVs that they would have produced at the end of the task would have been based on what I would have actually presented to them. So they would have followed the same template that I was showing them. So I suppose using the creative facilitation for them, that they are the human resource manager, recruiting somebody, they get to see it from a different perspective. They also get to have the 6 different samples of CVs, and they can see the good and bad ways of how to present. So it is, and as well, what's really important in creating them CVs is that they actually reflect the learners that are in the group as well. So that they are, some of the learners are, early school leavers. Some of the learners have had long-term time, unemployment within their like CV. So I suppose it's just a really useful, beneficial thing, because part of the discussion when they're deciding on who they're bringing forward to interview is that they could be actually ruling themselves out of being called themselves for interview, because they are similarly, presenting themselves in, in that way. Does that kind of answer that question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. And
if I can contribute just a little bit, what I felt with our trainees is that they were very attentive to the information, but also to the visual aspect. They were very, very demanding. Oh, this can't be like this. If I have a dot here, I can't have like this different symbol here. This is very important. And it was interesting to see them reacting to a document that wasn't of theirs, that was from another person. And this creates like this reflection of what they will do when it's their time to do it.
Yeah, exactly, Tanya. And it is so important for them that it's not, I may have my own style. It's so important that when I work with a group, whether they're in one company or whether they're a group of learners, that they're not all leaving with the same type of CV, that it's very much their own individual style. And
they want to show who they are.
Yeah, very much so.
Yes.
Perfect. And one more question for Tanya. How long did it take you to finish the workshop from 1 to 5?
Well, I was so lucky because they are here having classes every day, and I'm the one that manages their schedules. So I put my name in the middle, and I did two afternoons from 2 p.m. until 5 p.m. The first session was with 14 people. The second session I had, if I'm right, 9 in one session and the other ones in the other, because they couldn't be all in the same day. But in the all, let's say that group sessions were 2 afternoons, because we had 3 hours. And now we are in the phase of developing individual sessions for the ones that are mostly in doubt of what area, because the training course is so general. They can find different positions in different companies of the textile area, and we are helping them now in this phase to work for a specific function.
Okay.
I hope I've answered it.
Yeah, you have. Thank you both for your contribution.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, also your contact is available for the participants. Yeah, okay, perfect. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll continue with our last presentation. It will be done by Mojca. Hello, Mojca.
Hello, hi.
Hello, hi. Yeah, your presentation is the last one, but it's not the least. So we're looking forward also to your presentation. And at the beginning, I also invite you to shortly present yourself, and then you can continue with your presentation.
So thank you very much, Monica. I hope you still have the energy for the last presentation today. I promise I won't be long. I will be short. So my name is Mojca Vukovič. I come from Ljudska, univerza, Rogaška, Slatina, where I worked as an international project manager. But I'm also the coordinator for the University for Third Age, and I also have some study clubs for the members of the University for Third Age. But today I will talk about our project, our Erasmus Plus projects that has finished actually this year with the full title, basically Parent Skills as a Job Opportunity. So I will try to share my screen and you will tell me if it works or not. We will see. Okay. So can you see my presentation?
Yeah, everything works.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So we somehow gave the title of today's presentation, Teaching Important Life and Professional Skills. Basically, this was a 2-year Erasmus Plus project, and it involved partners from Sweden, from Italy, from Hungary, Spain, and of course, our organization from Slovenia. Basically, what we stated in the application form was that the main objective of our project will be to increase the employability of young parents by providing them basically a training program that will help them enable the recognition and development of informal skills, which can be acquired during parenting, for example, when young parents stay at home, and apply them in a future job. Or to put it simply, we wanted to encourage young parents, young people, to think about basically what kind of skills they have, and maybe they are not even aware of them, and how they could use these skills developed at home while they were looking after their children, while they were looking after their homes, doing the shopping, taking care of households, and how they could turn these informal skills into more formal skills, which would help them to gain a job easier, which would help them to add them into their CVs, and so on. So at the beginning of the project phase, we were actually thinking about target groups being young parents who have some troubles to access the job market, or maybe parents that had to leave their jobs and now they want to re-access the job market, and also to help youth workers who work with young people. But the project was also meant for different NGOs, associations, adult education organizations, and so on. But basically, when we started thinking about the project, we noticed that it is not only about unemployed people or about young parents, but it could also help students in different phases of education, to encourage them to think about the informal skills they have. So, for example, how do they do their homework? Do they do one thing at a time? Do they do more things? So are they multitasking? And can then they use this multitasking for some other things, and so on? But also, the platform which we developed can also be used by teachers, because it can make them think about their skills they have, and also how to encourage children or their students to think about the informal skills they possess and how they can use these informal skills either for their future jobs or maybe for their job, for their schoolwork. Okay, so we basically developed one intellectual result, which was a Psyo online learning platform, which included 3 models. Model 1 focused on how to exploit leadership skills in the job market. Model 2, how to manage time in the workplace. And Model 3, and how to manage finances in the workplace. And basically each model contains lessons that contain practical examples and exercise, which participants can check, can test, and actually get some feedback results. And of course, we translated all the modules to English, to Slovenian, to Spanish, Swedish, Hungarian, and Italian language. And to maybe talk some more about these 3 models, basically model 1 is about how important are the leadership skills, how we can improve them, what kind of styles of leadership skills do we know, how people can handle emotion. And again, as I mentioned before, all of this is done in a manner to make people who check the website, the platform, to think about what kind of skills they do have already. Maybe they gain them at home, and how they can take these skills and turn them into more formal skills. The other thing that this model contains is communication. So what kind of styles do we know? How can we communicate from between parents and children? How do we communicate in our working lives? And this is, for example, one of these practical exercise. So we can start thinking about our first boss or our favorite teacher or our parents, and try to think about the most specific leadership skills they have. And this is like a self-reflection exercise, so there can be no right or wrong answers. This is basically something that can make us start thinking. So, my parents is really, really good at organizing our trips. So he or she must have a very good leadership skill to do it. Model 2 basically focuses on efficiency. So what is efficiency? How we can become more efficient. Also about multitasking. So what is multitasking? When can it be good? When it is useful, or when it can go the wrong way? It also talks about time management. So what are the benefits of time management? What kind of techniques do we have? So what can we do in order to save time when we work or when we do something at home? But also about organization. So how can we improve our organizational skills so that we can do more in less time? And also, this is one of the practical exercises you can find in the platform. It's basically an example of how multitasking can go wrong, because we all know that sometimes it is not a good idea. It basically describes a typical day of Jane, who works at the office, and she's trying to save time. So she's multitasking during listening to a Skype conference. And after the Skype conference finishes, of course, she's very happy because she was able to go through her emails. She was able to answer some of the emails. But when she finishes the Skype conference and checks her work, she realized that she sent all the wrong emails, all the wrong dates, and so on. So now she has to do everything again. And this is basically a good example of exercise where people can see, what went wrong. So she was doing two very important things at the same time, which is not a very good idea. But also in the platform, you can find examples when multitasking is possible. For example, if you are waiting for some things to be printed, you can read a few emails in between or even answer them. Now, model 3 is more about finances, but in a very simple way. So basically, the purpose of this model is to maybe get people start thinking about what costs are, what kind of daily costs they have, what kind of cost a company can have, for example, and how do we classify different costs. Then a few basic facts about budgeting. So definition, what is economic budget, what is business budget, but also some basic terms in finances, and of course accounting. So what is debit, what is credit? And again, this content, this material can also be used for adults, but as well as for children, because it's explained in a very, very simple way. And again, it gets you thinking. So for example, one can do a short list about the costs that he or she faces in everyday life. So this is the link to our platform. where you can basically follow the link, you get into the platform, you can choose among 6 different languages. So you choose the language which is suitable for you, and then you can self-register with using basically a username and a password. It's very, very simple. It's very, very clear. And now I think that we can basically check if anybody has any questions. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mojca, for this presentation. We have some questions. People would like to know which skills were already well developed in parents and where did they have the lack of some skills, where they needed the most help.
Basically, during the feedbacks, because we were doing the pilot testing of the platform, basically they were surprised because they realized almost everybody, and we had like different groups. For example, in Slovenia, we had a lot of long-term unemployed people, and for example, when they started checking the platform, they thought they had no skills at all. But after checking them, they realized that they have basically a good development of multitasking, because they realized they were doing a lot of things, at the same time, and basically didn't know that this could be a skill that could be used on a job market also. Also, a lot of them reported a lot of organizational skills. And basically the biggest gap was in the finances part. So basically they reported, okay, we know that we have to somehow go through the costs every month, but we don't do it. We basically do it, like approximately, I will need this amount of money for this. And they found it would be interesting to keep track or to make lists of this. So this was basically the biggest gap in between.
Are these the examples from your practical work as you were working with these parents?
Yes. This was the practical result, and it was actually similar in all participating countries. So the financial part was the one that was maybe the least covered, while people discovered that all the other skills they have, of course, but there's always room for improvement.
Okay, perfect. So it's also about showing which competencies do we already have, and it's probably the same with teachers and with students, because some students are not aware of their competencies, and it can be a teacher work to show them where are they already good at, where are some specific things that can be improved.
Exactly. And on the platform, you will find some different tips of how to do it. For example, how you can make different charts, how to basically put in order things according to their importance, and so on. So basically what we have to do now, what we can do later, what is important and has to be done right away, what is important but can be done in a shorter period of time. So yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. Looks like the participants also enjoyed your way of talking and of expressing.
Thank you. I'm glad.
So thank you to everyone. With this presentation, we are finishing our conference, but this is not the last conference, as we have conferences each month. The next conference will be on 16th of December. If you haven't yet applied for the certificate of attendance, you can find the link in the description of the video. Apply for the certificate as you're already used to, and you can expect to have it in 5 days on your email. Check spam, check promotion, because sometimes it's not under the main emails. At this point, I would really like to thank you that you were following these conferences. It is a part of this Career Guidance in Working Life project, which is now finishing officially. And thank you once again. See you on the 16th of December at our next conference.